Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel, Art Classes My Way. We are continuing on with this guy here. You're going to notice some things a little bit out of sync. I ended up with like a 5-minute clip where I was still working at the gallery that I couldn't fit into the video from previous. So we're just going to pick up right where that guy left off, alright? So, see you in a bit. So, we're going to go ahead and kind of get this guy out of our way for the time being. And this is the guy that I've been working on. As you can see, he's been started and all, and I kind of had a bit of an idea while I was building him. All I did after I got done weaving, I just put him over my finger, got the general swish that I wanted just by shaping it by hand, no biggie. But I started to think, I want this articulated feeling like how this is and how the rings themselves are, but it's still a body. It's still, we want it to still feel fairly stiff. So I came up with an idea that would, at least I'm hoping it's going to work, that would give us still that articulated feeling, yet would still be sturdy and stable, and we don't have to do a whole bunch of connections all the way down through the upper body part of this bracelet that'll go across the top of the arm here. So I'm thinking I'm going to do 2, and I'm going to call them scales for the time being, for lack of anything better to call them. I want to do 2 of these scales per run. Now, as you can see, he's not very wide at all, and he can cover up pretty much that band and still have plenty of room to be able to see. He can even come off the side a little bit for a little bit more of that dramatic flair, because that's what the rings are all about, is that dramatic flair that goes on and all the dramatic movement with the shape. Granted, this is not everyday kind of wear, but it doesn't have to be everyday kind of wear. We can make it for everyday kind of wear, just be a little bit tedious. Trust me, I've driven with these things on. It's not easy. But, and I do drive left-handed. Even though I'm a right-handed person, I drive left-handed. But this guy ended up just about as wide as the bracelet itself, and I'm thinking if we did several of these, and they could be getting shorter and shorter as they go this way, or actually they could even get longer and longer going in this direction. Maybe this is the first 2. I'm thinking basically it needs to be done in segments of 2. So that way, again, we still have that articulation plus plus that dramatic flair going on without it just being a whole string of these scales and then we just shape them and bend them and we're done. It's a little bit boring, and we don't like boring on this channel. We like the challenge, right? Right. So we can see the general idea taking shape, and this is plenty to be able to make 2 scales at a time. So what I've done, I've taken the backbone, brought it all the way back. This is about as far as that's going to go there. And I need my square nose. And I'm going to squish it and kind of fold it down so that way it'll continue on. So, swish, squish. And just really I'm wanting to squish just this end down. There we go, like so. And then pretty much I'm going to pick the weave up exactly how I did it over here. It's going around the outside once, go long across the top, go around the outside once, go long on the bottom, go around the outside once, go long on the top, round the outside, so on and so on. Then by the time I get ready to incorporate this backbone here, what I do, I just basically change my weave a little bit. I go around the outside on this side, I go underneath the backbone, go around it, then I come around over to this side and I go around it, and then go back underneath the backbone, and then back over here, and then underneath. And basically I'm trying to keep, every time I go around, I'm trying to keep it underneath. So by going underneath all the time, pretty much what we are doing is making the backbone piece more prominent of a figure as we're going through it, and just gives it a little bit more design quality to it. Now, as you're going down the piece, you might notice that there are some gaps as you go, the further you go. What you're pretty much going to want to do, if you don't want any gaps whatsoever, I don't mind a few gaps here and there. It ends up looking pretty even. As long as it looks even, I'm happy. But pretty much what you're going to, if you want to combat that, what you're going to do is, once you go around the middle and you come out to one of the outer base wires, you might want to wrap it twice on both sides. And keep on going that way until you notice that you're, again, running into gaps on the outer edge. Then you're going to want to wrap 3 times around. I wouldn't go more than 3, because then you end up, you know, losing this wonderful lace work in between, and the gaps for that just start getting wider and wider and wider. Don't really want that. I wouldn't go more than 3 unless you're using a much smaller wire, like a 30 gauge or something like that. Then you get this wonderful lace pattern going in between, or webbing in between. Now for the next part, just take your square nose, you go ahead and take your backbone up, and pretty much that's going to be the underneath side. Again, it's going to be kind of doubled, but there's the backbone. He's up underneath there, and I just went ahead and I squished that guy closed, and then I took these 2 outer wires and just, you know, brought them down a little further, because this backbone piece, I want it to be up inside rather than, you know, hanging down with everybody else. I want it to feel like it's kind of creviced or curved up on the interior part. Once you get that done, and this is where it's going to get oh so fun, we're going to need to start weaving, and you can choose yourself how you want to go about this. You can either continue the weave that you were doing during this whole time here, all the way up the underneath side. Not very many people are going to see that side, but again, details are important. But what I'm going to do, and it just saves a minimal amount of wire in the long run. What I am going to instead do is just go around and do this weave that I did here on the end. Completely leave that middle wire out. Until I get all the way to the end where these guys are going to kind of crisscross, and then fold them back, and then continue onwards with this. And that gives me a lot of overhang, and I can make this guy even shorter if I want, or I can make him longer, since so far this is kind of the front scales. I'm thinking these guys are going to be the longest ones overall. And then I'm going to make the next 2 come in here. And I won't put these all together until I get all these scales done. But the next 2 are going to be just a little bit shorter than these guys. And then they're just going to probably, like, maybe 6 of them. I might end up having to make a 7th one, 2 or 3 sets of 2, and then 1 set of 1. Whatever it takes to get all the way to the end appropriately. But I'm going to make them just a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter, like how something with scales would have scales that go further down to the smaller end of the body. They get shorter, smaller, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and do the underside, and then I'll show you how to do the top side. Yep. All right, once you get your underside all woven and done where you are pleased as punch with it, next, what you're going to do, you're going to go just a little bit past where your backbone is, because the backbone, it didn't start until about here on this piece. So we still want that to look similar and the same. And as far as starting this new scale up on top, as you can see what we got going on there from that point of view, what we're basically going to do is crisscross these two guys. So that way it holds all this weaving that we've done in place and snug while we move on to the next. And if you need to use your square nose to get them to crisscross plus be fairly close together, I'd feel free. Just kind of using it to kind of fold it. Obviously you can't fold like paper with metal, but you can accomplish it with the right sort of tools. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this guy here. Alright, that makes him a little bit smaller on that side. Although, come on backbone, you're supposed to be in the middle. There we go. And then this guy is also going to need a folding. Or a little bit of a crease, whatever you want to call it. Make sure my square nose don't accidentally take off with some of my weave on the underside. Pinch that down, and there we go. And then from there, it's just picking up right where you left off. Now they're not going to look exactly the same, granted. We're going to go ahead and kind of move these guys down to follow this curving shape here. And then the backbone will also follow. And then we'll just start weaving from there, just like before. There you have it. So I will go ahead and do that, and I'll show you how to end these as soon as I figure out how to end them, and so that way they will attach to the bracelet itself. So I'll see you in a bit. So I got this guy all done, and seeing how this turned out, I'm more or less happy with it, but I think for the rest of it, I'm just going to do individual scales. I want to just make them a lot shorter bits of wire rather than trying to use up all the wire that I had. So, because it ended up being a little thicker than I really wanted it to be, but that's okay. Again, on lots of critters that have scales, the scales tend to be thicker going up closer to the head than they do going back towards the back. Keep the head protected. So what I've basically done is I've taken these two wires, the one that we rolled in black and the other side one that was kind of like, you know, the three that were woven together there at the beginning. I've taken these two and kind of moved them out of my way. And then this one is a part of the three that were woven together. I'm going to leave it here. And then this outer wire went through this hoop. This outer wire just folded underneath. I folded them both underneath. I want them to be right to the end of this little hoop here. And that's where I am going to connect them, more or less. They're just basically, this is going to be super, super simple. I'm going to bring this guy up and he's going to wrap around nice and snug. Get some of these wires out of my way. Like so. I'm going to roll that tip in so that way there's no pointy bits. And I'm going to do the same with this wire here. And just kind of roll him up and around where he's holding on to something in there. But the tip is hidden nice and well so that way it doesn't snag or grab anything. And now, while that's not exactly the most perfect of endings, right there, let me get my wire clippers. Where'd you come from? Came from right there. Snip. One less wire to worry about for the video. So overall, lots of drama, lots of fun, I feel. I hope you guys are enjoying this as well. I am not a dark and sinister person, but I do like dark and sinister looking things. If anything, the late 80s, early 90s have taught me when I was a child is that things that are dark and sinister looking aren't necessarily always dark and sinister. I believe that's what the basic foundation of Rainbow Bright was trying to teach us all, and David the Gnome, and Beetlejuice. There's a character you really need to be afraid of, but in the cartoon, not so much. Didn't mean that he was, I mean, he was a bad guy, but he wasn't a bad guy. You guys have watched that movie reference, which is also illustrating my point. So these wires are all going to be decorative elements to kind of hide and incorporate this transition from snake-like body, again, another animal that is dark and sinister, but is not actually dark and sinister. I do own one myself, if you guys would like to see him in one of my videos. His name is Vegeta. I'll give you 3 guesses where that name came from. Again, I'm a product of the 90s, what can I say? Mostly 80s, but a little bit of the 90s. He's a ball python, and again, snakes are not as sinister as everybody makes them out to be. He likes watching TV. He also does the dishes with me, and we vacuum together. Lots of fun. Very mellow. He's just, meh, I'm here. Okay, what are we doing? All right, we're doing dishes. Oh, that's interesting. This is general personality. Other breeds, I don't know so much. But back to this, sorry. If you want to meet him, just let me know in the comments section. I might actually do a video on drawing snakes and have him be our model. And I will put a warning for those of you who are afraid of, have phobias of snakes. I have phobias myself, and I do appreciate it when people put up warnings about it. So, but the big benefit behind this guy being so thick is if you manage to have a piece like this on and you end up hitting a wall or something, I do all the time. I am murder on bracelets. I tell you what, I am awful when it comes to bracelets and rings. That's why I don't wear my wedding ring. Within a month of having it, I put a great big chip in the beautiful red garnet right in the middle of it. And it makes me angry even now. And we've been married for about 6 years. But this makes it a lot more durable. As opposed to this guy, if you hit the wall, yeah, he's not going to break. But after being reposed, repositioned, and relifted over and over and over again, eventually, over time, so actually, it wouldn't be necessarily a bad idea to do these just like this. You have a regular one, and then you have one that's doubled. So that way the 2 doubles end up behaving as protection for the ones that aren't doubles, if you get my meaning there. So another way to building structures, and watch, I'm going to end up fiddle-farting around with this so much that these filigree wires are going to end up breaking before I ever use them. So we can see he is fairly nicely attached. He does have a middle piece. Very easy to lasso that down because we have these nice little side rails right here. That's one of the reasons why I wanted them on, so that way we can easily weave into those and incorporate them as well. And they are kind of hidden a little bit by the overall structure on top, so we can continue onwards. So from this point, I am going to go ahead and keep on making these. Actually, I could get away with probably making one more, but we'll see how it looks when I get done with one more of this guy. By that point, it might look too even because that'll make 4. And typically, you don't want to go for even numbers because even numbers always look boring. Odd numbers create visual interest. So, and I'm trying to figure out as well, while I will be doing this, where I could put a 3rd eye. If this is the body, you have this, being one of the heads, is basically Jeff has 3 heads. He's got the one on the middle finger, the one on the thumb, and then the one that's going across the top. So he's kind of a little, let's call him a fledgling Hydra. I love dragons as well. So, yeah, you put a dragon on it, and I'm gone. Bye-bye. I'm gonna go play with the dragon. So, let's see here. Could always, I mean, he's not a very evenly shaped. He could even be blobular when it comes down to it, with scales and kind of amorphic. I believe that would be the correct term. Where he's physically changing a lot, his own physical being. So I could even curl one of these guys off to the side, build a structure, and put the eyeball over here in this area. One way or another, I want to add a 3rd red eyeball. Hey, I could always put it on the tail, although that kind of ruins my overall design. But, you know, I could. I don't want to, but I could. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get some more of this built, and we will be right back. Alright, so I have made up several scales, and I was thinking about it that maybe I won't make another one quite like this. Maybe I will. I'm not 100% sure, but I want to see them all together first. I do like how this one's thicker, but at the same time, I do like how more scale-like this one feels. And this is the next piece that goes in. And then we have the next one. Whoops, actually, that's backwards. This one goes in next. Then this guy. And then I got my itty bitty short guy here. But it's getting very, very difficult to hold these guys in place and see what's going on at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and start affixing them to the piece. I did end some of my weaves rolling down one side or the other. I kind of alternated between. It's not necessarily that important. But again, to kind of call back to the other rings and make it feel like it's all one cohesive piece or one piece that it all goes together, I want as little bare copper as possible. So that way what bare copper does show is pretty much on the decorative side. So this guy's the next piece. This guy goes up a little bit more, like so. And then this guy, he also goes up. I just laid them down to try to figure out placement and all. I want him to lay down pretty flat along here so you can kind of see the idea that's going on. So, and I did curl the spine right here so that way it was like a little decorative element inside of this gap. Which there... I was like, oh, well, I wish I could have done that for in here, but since I did it the way I did it, not so much. You know, hindsight's 20/20, and that's why this is more of a proof of concept or, you know, proving a theory rather than it being a finished product. I don't think I'll put this one up for sale unless somebody really wants to buy it, because I will be pretty much finding things out as I go. This is a pretty complex little critter. So, I'm going to place this guy. He needs to be touching the bracelet because that's how the gapping is supposed to go. I'm going to open that up a little bit. And then this is where I'm wanting this piece to pretty much go. And up there. And maybe just a little bit more underneath. Yeah, let's just go with maybe about there. So it'll just kind of set on top of. Now to start permanently affixing these guys down, that's what these decorative elements are for. And particularly, I'm going to use this extremely obnoxious piece for me. He's been in my way this whole time. I'm going to use him. And I want to start by going in between here, so that way I have pressure holding this bunch, or the first bunch, down. And because this guy was wire woven, once I get this holding down more, see how it's getting a little overwhelming here. Once I got this wire holding the whole piece down, because of the wire weaving, it's pretty much going to hold them both quite still. So get it in place, be very sure I am happy with where it is at. So sorry if it's going a little out of frame, but I'm just looking and making sure it's exactly where I want it to be. Straight, and just might have to look at it from this point of view here. Yeah. All right, holding it down. I'm gonna go wrap around once, and then I'm gonna come up just like before, and I'm gonna wrap it around the scale that's one scale all by himself. And there we go. And then this next one's gonna go up underneath. Just kind of move him out of my way. Find my next piece. You get out of my way. See, just open that up a little bit. See, all these guys, they do still have to yet be permanently positioned. Now I want this one, actually, I want it a little bit further out. And he's going to be held down, but make sure nice and straight. And we got the next piece. I'm going to widen that up a little bit, so that way it'll lay down on either side of the bracelet. Kind of like hold the bracelet. So, see, kind of cute. Feels like a little living thing that's all squiggly around your wrist, holding on for dear life. And I'm gonna wrap him around kind of twice. I wish it was just a tiniest bit longer, but oh well. It didn't turn out that way. But I'm pulling it down, and I'm gonna give it a little bit of a circle at the end to call back how we end most of our little tentacles and such. And how we end most of the wires in here. So that way I feel, even though, you know, you're probably not ever really going to see that little guy in there, that's fine. But again, details, they matter. If you've ever heard me say that before, and especially with this piece, plus the rings, yeah. We'll say that till the day I die. Okay. And plus, now we have this dude. We can also use him. I can do one of two things with him. If I need him to stabilize the rest of the body here, I can use him to stabilize the rest of the body. I'll go ahead and just wrap him all in black, give the end a little curl, and I will use him as a wrap. Or, which I think he's going to be wrapped in black anyway, one way or another. But the other option is, again, I can do what I did with these three up here with the same wire that was basically up at this end instead. I can add more wires, exact same way. Or I can use him as a stabilizer and just wrap him around the tail. It'd be a bit of a decorative element. It could be one of the mini kind of tentacle feeling little bits and parts. Kind of wrapping around himself a little bit like an octopus. He's like, hold on. So yeah, I'm thinking that this is looking like a lot of fun. I can't wait to wear this to the next show. All right, and now I've got all these little side wires as well that I can use, and I'm going to go ahead and just pull them kind of outwards so that way they can help hold themselves in place here a bit, like so. This can help hold this guy, and I'm going to go ahead and tuck him underneath. A little bit. See if I can't get him to come up right underneath there. But I'm gonna, once again, end my wire with a little hoop. And he ended up being kind of too short. That's alright. I can take some black wire, lasso these guys together, and it'll be just fine. Or I can even take the brass wire and lasso them together as well. Not a big deal, but what is nice is how this looks from the side. That looks really beautiful and very flowy. I wonder what would happen if we just took that actually and went backwards. I was hoping to tuck it underneath when I started, but that's not going to happen, so let's see. Yeah, that's the small end. Uncurl it just the tiniest bit. And we'll just curl him back the other direction, and then that might actually look a little nicer when we go to lash him down overall, you know? There you go. Yeah, that'll look a little nicer. Like he's laying a little flatter. And it still looks good from the side. And now for this one, we could go backwards with him, but I don't, it would actually. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't if I hadn't have wove down so far. And if this little, this bare wire here was a little closer to where, you know, this kink already is, by folding it underneath, it would actually hold it in place. But there's so much extra wiggle room that even if I did fold it underneath, there's still the ability to have all that wiggle go on. So in actuality, what I probably could do is I'm going to take it around our little clasp that we made for this, and I haven't even made how they're going to connect just yet. Take it around that and just fold him around there, and that will hold that one into place a little bit more nicely. And I can lash him down to the bottom as well. I'm going to go ahead and come in here. Be better to use a square nose. And just kind of give this a little bit of a crimp and a little bit tighter of a hold right there. It's got a little too much give. There we go. There. Not nearly as much wiggle, and I will solve the wiggle in a little bit. And now we can position a good majority of these guys. I'm going to actually turn that one a little bit more upwards. We'll turn this guy, just the end of it, upwards, but we'll lower him a little bit more like the others. Like so, and yeah. Feels fun. And we got this wire here that we can still do something with. And by going under, he actually looks like he's a crisscross. So maybe the best thing to do with him is actually to go over. Ah, now that looks nicer. We'll go over instead. And then I'm going to take him and hide him in this gap here. Now I'm going to pull him through the other side to make it nice and tight. Always easier said than done. There we go. And then I'm just going to go ahead, the end, since it came all the way through, you could cut him back a little bit so that way he's just underneath there, but hey, we got lucky enough that he came all the way around. Let's just give him a little curl, like so. And then just tuck him down in. Next there. Yeah. That makes, he is good, that one. But we still have this wire here. His other part. Okay, let's just wind you out of my way. And we can just go ahead and fold him up and just hide him again inside of this little gap here. Really don't, he's not long enough to go anywhere else, but at the same time he's too long for much of anything else. And again, holds him in place in a nice little spot. Looking mighty fine. And now I think that pretty much takes care of this part of the body. Other than some lashing down areas, like I would like to lash this guy down a little more, lashing these guys together. You don't need to see me do that. You guys know what lashing down is at this point. If you're watching this video, my God. But just in case, a quick verbal explanation, it's where you just take a smaller piece of wire, preferably of the colors that you are currently using, and then you just basically sew things together. For instance, I would take the wire, bring it down through, try to get it underneath here, and then I would go bare minimum 4 times around both of these to lash them together. And then after that, you want to wrap it 3 times around just one. So that way you have something with the tail, you know, where it can't just get out of, unsew itself. And then we want to end it between the body and the wires that you are sewing. So it'll be between the bracelet and these filigree elements. And we'll give it a little nip right there. Basic, super fast, verbal explanation. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, but I think the next thing to do is to start making this look nicer and this ending a little better, which it looks nice already as it is, but it could just be, you know, just a little bit more decorative overall. Give it a little bit of a nicer overall wrap to hide some of the things that we have done up to this point. Now I'm going to wrap this guy around here. Why, I don't know. It's just what Jeff is telling me to do. It's the way he wants to be made. If you didn't watch my first video, his name's Jeff. That's what he told me. Try to scoot these just a little closer together. I'm going to take this longer guy here. These guys kind of unwound themselves here. Not surprised, but go ahead and wind them back. I want to go ahead and put a little bit of a curly Q right there. And then kind of back to some of the strengthening things I told you guys about that I've been playing with in my head. I'm just going to add this as a decorative element, plus with the added benefit of strengthening this whole neck area of my little fledgling Hydra. And then, as I've done this whole time, I'm going to end my wire. Yep, that's a small one. With the curl. Now I have done so much to this guy. I'm going to go ahead and put him on just to make sure that everything is still in its appropriate place. Yeah, things got moved a little bit, but not too terribly much. Just kind of reshape things. There we go. Now doesn't that look like fun? So punk. Yeah, I'm not punk, but it's fun. Now what we have left to do is our little tail. We still have this black wire as well, and I'm thinking he's just going to dance along the top a little bit, or in between along there. Fun, fun, fun. Oh, I'm having so much fun trying to... This is a brain teaser of epic proportions. I'm loving it. So let's go ahead and take our little black wire and just kind of squiggle him across. He's not so much functional as he is just about the decoration. And to take that element, that, you know, that touch of black that we've used throughout the rings, there's just a touch of black here. Well, a touch. The whole head of him's black right here, but, you know. Go ahead and just kind of tuck him in underneath here. There we go. We got a fun little squiggle. Just pushing down and kind of maneuver him just a tad. Woohoo! Bet you weren't expecting him to go like this, were you? Eh. You never know what I'm going to do. I'm such a mystery. Not. I could make it to where he just laughs, but that's a lot of movement and pressure to be putting on one wire all by itself that's so long and can be so easily manipulated. I might attach something to it. That wouldn't be too hard. Little hook to just kind of hook on, and then the hook can always be extended for a larger wrist size, so on. Yeah. And now for the tail, which the tail is going to be a lot like this very little piece. This back piece, I did not put any kind of backbone in it or anything. And I think this wire, I'm going to use him to come back up this way to better anchor this piece down just a little bit. But this piece didn't have any kind of backbone. It's just a small little scale. Kind of looks like a little kiss tongue, you know, if you've ever heard a kiss. But I think I'm going to make a couple more of these, maybe about 3 of them, and just put it on the end of the tail as the end of the tail. That'd be pretty fun and sassy. And then I got these 2 wires in which I could, you know, attach it the way I've attached these guys. And I could still yet attach a little bit more, or even a little bit better yet. It's just going to take some working. Is all. So on to that. I'm going to go ahead and make those pieces up. So I kind of lied about some of the things that I said that I wanted to do with this piece, but when I ended up sketching out the final, to try to incorporate some of the ideas I wanted, like the red eye on the bracelet and everything, it ended up looking like a completely different art style from the rings. So I ended up just leaving off the second red eye, but here we are. I also mentioned that I wanted to do some scales, small ones like what's going on here, over here. I ended up leaving that off for a couple of reasons. One, when I tried to do these scales and making them smaller and smaller, they just didn't look right. They just felt too big and too clunky. I needed to use smaller wire. And that's fine, but since this is all I have of this wire left, like I said at the beginning of this video, this brass colored wire is all I have, and the store where I had originally bought it, they did have multiple sizes. I figured I'd be safe. Well, when I go back to the store to buy more of this brass colored wire, they no longer carried it. They carried a different brand, and with a different brand comes a completely different color as well. So this is what I ended up with, and I didn't mind ending the tail off like so. I think it's fun, and it feels like he's trying to hold on Jeff, this character. I have some chains I'm going to take from here on this ring and bring it over here and attach here. Same for the thumb ring as well. But overall, I think he's done. So I hope I fulfilled my promise to you guys as far as, I know I had way bigger ambitions, but just not having this colored brass wire anymore really limited me on what I could and could not pull off. So that was a pretty big bummer, especially to me. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this project. It ends up being a two-parter. Please like, subscribe, comment, favorite. Do all those things that you wonderful people do. I have a Patreon that you can donate $1 a month. It would be most excellent to keep this channel going. And I also have an Etsy where you can go and buy some of the products I make. This guy may not be on there, although I think I will wear him to Gen Con. That's going to be fun. Along with a couple of other projects you're going to be seeing here shortly in the future. Some bigger and wilder projects, just because let's not ask why we did something, but can we do something? And there's a lot more things that I can do that I would love to show you guys. And just have fun. It's the important thing. So thanks for coming and hanging out, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful evening. Bye!